Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And hey, you know what's cool about this month? We're actually recording this in the month it's intended to be heard in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last 2 months we have been late. And this month we are on time, but just barely. We are coming, if you can believe it, to the end of July. Next month is the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off. Before you know it, it's going to be Christmas.
Shut up.
Time just goes so fast. Jack said to me, "Hey, Mom, Christmas will be here in 4 months." And I'm like, what in the world?
Oh, that's a depressing thought.
It is. It's
I
going to
hate
be
cold weather.
It's going to be cold. And there's going to be breaking ice out of buckets and all that. So, but for now, we are in the hottest part of summer. And
I like it.
I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I think it sounds better than beating ice out of troughs. But the ATFO is coming up next month. If you are listening and you've never been, please plan to come down to Winfield, West Virginia, August 21st through 23rd. We've got some new stuff happening this year. The Rider Wars event, I think, will be really interesting. We're going to have the judges.
Do I have to live stream for that too?
I guess you do.
Oh, crap.
And this year, you're not going to gallivant off to somebody's wedding.
Listen, we've got to solve the hot phone problem.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you have any things you've used in the past to be able to film outdoors in heat to keep the phones cool from shutting off, we'd love your suggestions.
You don't understand the struggle it is to keep the phone going. It's terrible.
So this year we're looking into, what can we put on the phone so that we can not have any gaps in the live stream. And
it makes people mad.
Yeah, they want to.
They get really grouchy about it. I'm like, but I can't help it.
We want you to be there in person, though. So plan to be there. You won't regret it. There's going to be some new judge demos and just more to see. There was already a lot to see. You will be glad you came. We are looking for sponsors and things. A little bit later in the episode, we'll talk a bit about that. But we're going to come at you today with a bit complaint.
A bit of a complaint?
A bit of a complaint about bits.
Yeah.
There's lots of things we could say about bits. One of my favorite things when Suzanna's screening trainer applications is when she'll print screen it to me or copy and paste it and say, "Look what this trainer says." And it says, "I like to start my horses in a tom thumb."
Oh my gosh, that drives me crazy. I'm like, you're out.
And here's the thing about a tom thumb, and I'm not the best person to go into all the mechanics of it, but what always stands out to me about the tom thumb is when Patrick King of Patrick King Horsemanship was doing his bit talk, and he brings the skull, and he brings all these bits.
What's her name?
And she got stolen.
Yeah, but she came back. But what's her name?
It'll come to me.
Debbie or Diana.
Harriet.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So he has this skull, and then he'll go through the mechanics of like putting the bit in the mouth of the skull and just like going through, what impact the bit has on the horse. And some bits that look harsh are actually not so in the right hands. However, the thing Patrick always talks about with the tom thumb is that no matter who is holding the reins,
there's never any release.
There's never any release. The tom thumb is an unkind bit that should be thrown in the trash can, period, end of story.
Yeah.
But I think you could probably talk to them more, Suzanna, about what it's like for a horse. And then you even have a story about a horse that kind of ended up so subjugated that was the only bit that she
would accept.
Yeah. And like it almost to me reminded me of a domestic violence victim.
It was the saddest thing because that was my own horse that I bought from a public riding stables, and I could never get her out of that tom thumb because she'd fuss with her head and just act like a kook when she was not in her tom thumb. But I will say, when I rode her in her tom thumb, I basically left my reins down on my saddle, and I only picked him up to turn her because I didn't want to put any pressure on that tom thumb. It was sad, though. I tried every bit in the planet to get her out of that.
And so one thing, and this is a very basic statement about the tom thumb that a lot of people don't realize, they really think
it's a snaffle with a curb, and it's not.
Yeah, they think it's a snaffle. And I have had the conversation on and off through the years with many a person that really, truly didn't realize that it was bad news. They thought, They thought it was a gentle. I have seen people talk about it as if it were a gentle bit. I'm like,
it's a really crappy design bit. There's just no release on it whatsoever.
I think it's even sold on some websites in the snaffle category.
It is. And even if you lay your reins down like I did, it still puts pressure on your horse. It's just, it sucked that I never could get her out of that. She'd been in it 16 years and she was like, nope, this is my bit.
And I hate to be the bit police, but I mean, somebody has to. It's a crappy job, but somebody has to do it.
Well, the other bad thing about a Tom Thumb is the way that they're designed, where the side pieces meet the actual bit part wears out really, really fast. And then not only is it applying pressure consistently to your horse, but that pinches the corners of their mouth, and people just don't pay any attention to that. I have one hanging on my wall that was such a pincher. It's just crappy. It's just a crappy bit that is so popular that they make a lot of money off of it, so they keep putting the darn thing out.
Well, and also the thing that I would mention about this is the bad behaviors that develop in a horse that's being put into situations where the wrong things are used, and then the horse, what I say, the horse starts to unravel. You know, and imagine being a horse that's been treated fairly, and we've had this happen. Had horses with trainers that have done a nice job, and here we get a photo later, and the adopter has the horse in a Tom Thumb. And you know what goes through my mind
and they can't figure out why the horse isn't like it was when they tried it out.
Right. And then imagine being the horse, and I'm not trying to impose like that they go through this process that a human does in their mind, but the horse has to think, what the crap? You know, what have I done? Why is this happening to me? It's such unfairness, and that doesn't just apply to changing and going to a bit that's not fair to the horse. It can be all kinds of things, which is for a different episode, and we've touched on that, like tack fit and just the way you handle the horse. And you know, what a rude awakening for a horse to have been started well, and for a trainer to have really given a horse a good foundation.
Making a pocket in your saddle pad, and then the adopter doesn't know to do it.
Well, see, all kinds of things, or how you cram the bit in their mouth, clang, like, you know, or drop it out. I mean,
I hate that.
I know.
I'm telling
you,
watching somebody bit a horse roughly is just, I can't even not say anything. I'll be like, can I show you how to do this better?
Right. And I think when people hear these things, and I have been told, you know, that sometimes when people hear us talk, it makes them feel like nobody can ever know enough. And so they shouldn't even try.
I never know enough.
But it's like you don't know enough. You know, that's the thing. You won't ever know
enough.
You won't. I mean, about anything, frankly. And so it's not.
When you think you know enough, you're an idiot.
That's a concerning thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so I never want it to sound like, well, you might as well give up because you can never figure it out. Everything I'm doing is hurting my horse. And honestly, sometimes yes. Actually, in fact, most everything you're doing could be hurting your horse.
Buddy, I've discovered some things I sure wish I knew better. I mean, I wish I knew about making pockets a long time ago, because...
Well, and maybe explain that for people hearing it, just, you know, without going down that whole thing. Like, what are you, when you say make a pocket, because people are going to hear it.
When you're saddling your horse, you take your fist and you punch the saddle pad up into the neck of the saddle so that there's a tunnel between the withers and the saddle.
And the reason for that is?
Because the more you ride, the tighter and tighter that gets. And it either pulls their mane or it just pinches the crap out of them.
Right. So things like that. I mean, you can't go into it and don't feel bad that you didn't know. But once you do know better, then you do better.
We hope.
We hope. We always hope. Moving on, I mentioned a bit ago about the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off. We do need stall and meal sponsors. We also need fun show class sponsors and just general event sponsors.
I like to hear who sponsors the fun show classes. I always think that's interesting.
Oh, I do. So we'll read off what it is specifically. So if it's a cute little thing about a horse you used to have and that you miss or whatever, and you know,
some people sponsored in their name of their grandmother who showed English for 55 years or something.
Right. You can make it fun, and there are people there that will, you know, potentially know or think, oh, I remember that horse, or I knew her. So think of something that you know, cared about that you want to sponsor in honor of, or if you just have really enjoyed following a certain ATFO trainer, their journey, pick up their stall and their meal. I think that's around $100 for both. And it's just a great way to help This event costs us around $50,000. Summer is always when donations are down. So it's a hard event to pull off, but it's so worthwhile. And in the end, when the event's over, there is some funding raised to cover the costs of the event, but it comes after all this money has been extended. And right now, like Suzanna and I were just talking, the number of horses, when I sat down in the van with her just now, that we immediately started talking about, what were there 3 you mentioned right away from 2 separate cases that need turned over?
Yeah.
That we've just been asked today, and that doesn't count the waiting list we already have. People think that winter is when horses are turned over the most. It is not. For whatever reason, historically, this time of year is when we are just covered up in requests to take horses. And so
I never have figured that out quite.
I don't understand it at all, really. I don't know if they go in the winter. People are saying, well, they're thin because it's winter, and then the summer they aren't picking up weight, and then they're like, okay, well, there's really something going on bad. I don't know what the reason is, but it's always been that way. The worst cases we've ever had, Scarlet, Rowan, Blake, Black Beauty, the LaRue County, they always happen in the summer. So that's when we need funding the most. It's when funding is hardest to come by. If you know of private foundations or companies, please let us know. Say, hey, I have this connection to give you guys to a foundation that might be interested in being a donor.
Or check and see if your company matches your donation.
Right. Many companies.
Because there's a lot of companies that do, and the people don't realize it. The employees don't realize it.
And keep in mind, I mean, just running Heart of Phoenix is about $25,000 to $30,000 a month. And people think there's some kind of state funding or county funding or federal funding. We do not get anything like that. There is nothing like that for horse rescue. So it's really individual donors. And when you're hearing us talk, understand that if you're giving $5, $10, $20, $50, $100 a month, you're one of the reasons this continues forward. It does matter. Your individual donation, even if it is small, it is so important. So
I like that one fundraiser we did where we had all the sticky notes, and it said, one of the sticky notes was, if you've learned anything from Heart of Phoenix that helped your horse, send him $5.
Oh, yes.
That one was funny.
Right, and if you're listening to this podcast and you like it, send in $5. I mean, I go through Starbucks and spend $7 most days. And so keep in mind, I'm a volunteer. So I give all of my time, as much as, well, all of it really, every last drop of it, to the work of HOP. Suzanna, very similar to that. And we have a whole team of people that really just spend most of their days helping us make this work.
Yeah.
I want to tell I think this is one of my favorite stories. And it's about a horse that's in the ATFO this year.
I like this story, but it hurts my feelings too.
It hurts my feelings. Because going back to when you learn better, you do better. So back in 2021, while the ATFO was going on, I believe it was, or it just wrapped up, we received a herd of, I believe, 8 feral stallions and colts off the strip mine. I went out and personally set up the pen and went and picked them up, got them loaded with some folks, and we brought them back to the rescue. It was a bachelor herd. So those often don't thrive really well. I mean, they're rejected from the main herds. And so they were thin and...
Hold on, I'm confused. How are Oberon and Tabasco brothers, but Olivia sent us Oberon? Did they go to Olivia's first?
Oberon ended up, no. Tabasco came from a different situation. He didn't come through Kentucky. Humane.
But they are brothers.
They are brothers, yes. So Oberon was a band stallion and had his own herd and had been rounded up prior.
Oh, okay.
When we got Tabasco, I looked at him and I said, there's no way this horse is not Oberon's brother. And
then the locals sent us the pictures.
And Olivia went back and looked at her documenting, and like Oberon was like on the mare, was with the mare as a young one, and then Tabasco was on her side, like as the next year's foal. So he was like a year younger than Oberon, who had been in the ATFO in 2020. Yeah. So Tabasco was more gated and not as pretty.
It's like a West Virginia family. They're all related.
Oh my gosh. Every time I think about the mine horses, I hate it. But I'm like, how West Virginia and Kentucky? Somebody will hear that and be offended. But I'm from West Virginia, in southern West Virginia, so I can make the jokes about it. So Tabasco was, as best we could tell, maybe 3 or 4 years old. We had the actual date. We do know whenever he was foaled, whatever it is recorded as. And he was kind of tough. We ended up turning him out a while, and he went into the ATFO as a late entry, the next year maybe. So, however it was, he went in late, and a trainer ended up taking him on a bit late, and he still needed gelded. He hadn't been handled enough. We had turned them out at stallions, I guess it was, and just let them hang out for a while until we could get a trainer. So,
not in the herd, though.
Not in a herd with mares.
No.
And so, however the timeline went, he ended up in the ATFO as a late entry with a trainer that came to us, recommended, screened fine, actually had some connections to trainers we've really liked. And that trainer did no service by this horse at all.
The only good thing he did for him was he got him gelded.
Yes, but honestly, I would rather have we would have just kept him and seen it through ourselves. We ended up not feeling great about it. We ended up going to retrieve him. And I think from that situation, there was some amount of trauma created. You know what it was, Suzanna? In 2021, it was at the beginning of the ATFO, and then it was that year he was gathered. He went into the ATFO because he was older. Some of them weren't as old, and he was in better weight. So he, unlike Luigi and Mario and some of those others, he went in it, and then the next year we took him back. He was gelded. We just turned him out. He went into the ATFO the next year and was picked. So he's a 2017. Okay, well, so yeah, in 2021 we got him, and he went into the ATFO next year and was picked as a showcase option by Liz Young Bailey, and she did a good job unraveling what had been some just rushed training and maybe even a little bit of kind of traumatic stuff with learning to be handled and not bolting or bucking.
Well, he went to Lydia Tuminello for a little while too.
Was that after that?
We're
trying to tell a story. We don't even know the story.
He was at Lydia's, because that's Lydia's picture.
Okay, correct. Okay, so Tabasco, once he came back from the ATFO, he went to a foster. Lydia Tuminello did some work with him. He wasn't really going fully under saddle, and he ended up being picked then the next year in 2022 by Liz, and he was a showcase. Liz got him under saddle, but he was very bolty, very, very bolty is when I went back and read through the thing, and still kind of fairly on the ground, kind of weird about his feet, and would buck with tack. And so, we got him back, and with everything we knew, we just felt like this horse can't be ridden. This background, all this stuff, it seems like he's not going to be a riding horse. And I started trying to think, like,
we liked him, though. He was kind on the ground.
He was a good guy, and he made progress. Like, the more he was with people, the more he was very charming, kind of derpy even. And so we've held on to this horse, for years. And we thought about letting him go in the ATFO last year, and we had some reservations. We decided he wasn't real comfortable on his back when Nelson and Morgan messed with him. Yeah. Something about him just felt like he wasn't comfortable. Brought him back to the rescue. He checked sound. We went and just turned him out in a nice herd with a foster. Went and retrieved him. Did another lameness. Like, he's been all over.
His song is "I've Been Everywhere, Man."
Yeah, and like, the thing, I loved him. When you get a hold of him, he was a kind, good boy. But we had just essentially resigned that he could not be ridden. Okay, but this is a young horse. This horse is now just 8 years old. And we're going to say he can't be ridden. But potentially he might even be dangerous to ride. So then you have this question of, can you even find a home? And if you can, what if they get on him and somebody gets hurt?
Well, to be fair, though, that one time we evaluated him, he was really, really sore.
But he had not had anybody even try to ride him between that time and
that'd
been 2 years. He'd been 2 years, though, even at that point. off. And
we did what Dr. Walker says: put them on
put
the
them,
back,
put them out in the back 40,
and them for a while.
Yeah, and pull them back in. So we went ahead and we put him in the ATFO this year. We said, he's checking sound. Let's give him a shot. We gave full disclosure of his background. And
we ran our hands all over him, and there wasn't any of that soreness stuff like there was before.
And Laura Van Orden, this is, I think, her 4th ATFO. She picked him. And I was worried because I was like, have I put a horse in that's going to get somebody hurt? But I've given all the full disclosure, and this horse on the ground was a good boy. He wasn't always, but he had gotten there. He'd continued to make progress, and I'd have felt comfortable with anybody handling him on the ground. So with that backstory, Laura went to work, and I think she was very slow and very reserved, knowing that, as a fall and being yeeted through the air isn't what she wanted for her summer 2025 life. But it has gone so well, and now she's had kids on him.
Yeah.
And so I was just talking to the one trainer, Liz, that had him, and she really liked him too. And she couldn't afford to keep him longer in training. But she's like, I'm so glad to hear this update. She's like, I really think there was some trauma in the past. And I said to her, I regret, that we ever have a horse go somewhere where they were let down by a trainer we picked. But it happens, and you can try your very best to screen and know what's going on. But you can't always, and you learn those lessons, and you don't let horses go back a second time. But if you guys check out Tabasco on Laura's page, what is her page's?
Pale
Hollow Farm in Virginia, and see how nice this guy's doing. And it is so rewarding because, horses don't always make that kind of progress, and to see that kind of turnaround and, again, I have that feeling of like he could have gotten here sooner had he had a better start, and I wish that he had. But he's got it now.
But even if he hadn't have gotten here, though, we were committed to him. He was nice to handle on the ground, and we'd adopted him out as a companion animal.
Or he'd have stayed at Hop, like there was nothing wrong, I think a lot of people, a comfortable horse that's safe, that can't be ridden, if they're truly comfortable, that's not, that's not the horse's fault in that way. If something happened, as long as they're safe to handle and vet and farrier, and he enjoys people and the company of people. But now he clearly is very happy to have a rider, and they're doing so well.
I know. I love to see pictures of him now.
I do.
His ears look happy. His eye looks relaxed.
And he's such a, he is a dorky kind of fella.
Yeah, his brother was much prettier.
Yeah, and it's not that he's cute, but he's got just kind of like almost an Eeyore vibe. I don't know. And he's kind of shaped like a potato. But a big potato. Well, he's actually not even that tall. He's 14'2", but he gives the impression of a big horse because he's built drafty.
Like a Mack truck.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's just a lovely story. I've loved seeing it. I'm so glad. Everything doesn't always go so well. And Laura said, it's really been her favorite horse. It sounds like that she's taken for ATFO, and that has given her the least trouble. And I think that speaks to giving a horse time. You do have to give them time. And we try very hard to do that unless we just know that's not going to change the story. But we felt like it could. That's why we kept doing it with this fella.
And I think also the walkthrough that we do, she really listened, and she took the time to make sure that the tack fit and that the groundwork was there and that all those things.
Right.
She didn't just rush to hop on him 2 days later.
Yeah, she took it very slow. And maybe there was some little fundamental that just clicked, that got picked up, and it's just so hard to say. I wish they could talk like
maybe
Dr.
it was
Walker.
magic. Just sometimes it's magic.
Yeah, it's been very nice. It's been a beautiful story, and I hope he gets the best home.
Have we ever had a horse named Magic?
Magic Mike.
But have we ever had one just named Magic?
No.
That's weird. Every rescue has a horse named Magic.
Well, Magic Mike was close. God rest his soul. All right. So now we've got the ever offensive Ding-a-ling of the month.
This one was pretty funny.
This one was funny. Susanna calls me and she goes, somebody in England says that we're using their horse's photo. And I was like,
and they're really pissed about it.
Yeah, they're really mad. And I said, well, ask them to show you what photo it is, because sometimes we have used what we thought were stock images. So maybe we could have had one out there. Well, then the lady links us, or print screens, a blog that I did from an emaciated Morgan who was close to 30 years old 10 years ago. And it's the animal control photo that was taken when the horse was being seized. And she sends it and said, "This is my horse."
You can see my miniature horse's legs in the
my
background.
No, you can see my mini donkey's legs.
Mini donkey, yeah.
And I'm like, "Ma'am, this is not your horse. But if your horse looked like this, it needs help. It needs a lot of help. How dare you? How dare you? My horse has laminitis, and it's 30, and it's fine." And I was like, "Hun, the horse in this photo is emaciated, was seized for neglect. He totally rehabbed. He was never in England. That is my horse, and you have handled this very poorly." And
I don't appreciate you taking my photo without even asking me.
Yeah. And so I went, and then like I supplied like the photos and the link to the blog from 10 years ago showing this happened 10 years ago. This is her horse's condition presently. And then I go to her page and I look up her horse's photos, and she has photos on her page of her horse in very poor condition. Not as bad as Emmy was, but very poor condition just like 2 years ago. And I resisted the urge to like put like juxtapose like the horses, they're bay. That's the only common factor. But she was so nasty. So just kind of an example of the things we deal with. She's mad that we're using her emaciated horse's photo, not her horse. The photos are from 10 years ago.
Occasionally we accidentally do that, though. I accidentally stole some lady's Friesian's photo one time.
Yeah, but this was like the thing she print screened and sent us was us telling this horse's story.
Yeah.
And had his before and after. And so, listen, before you message us, what we do hear a lot, people message us and act like the horse we've just got in is their horse that they've lost.
Yes.
It has never been. And every time somebody insists that the horse is theirs, it's like the wrong breed, the markings don't match. And it's like people just want to get a free horse, and they think that we'll just be like, "Oh, I didn't know this was your horse. Here, come pick it up." But I don't think even one time it has been when somebody has insisted it's been.
I feel like there was one, but they didn't want it back. They just wanted us to know its history.
Yeah, like when we've had horses come through where somebody did say, "Hey, I know this horse." But like when people say, "That's the horse I've been looking for and I want it back." And we get those a lot too. But this was like a new thing. I wanted to print screen it and share it, but I didn't. I just let it go.
Nice to know they follow us in England, though.
Right. Well, and they do. Yeah.
They do follow us in England.
I wish that woman would feed that horse. It looks really bad. So, so if you're listening, lady, feed your horse better. No excuses.
There is feed. You can feed a laminitic horse.
Right. You don't have to starve the horse. And that rolls really nicely into, you can't feed all horses the same.
That's for freaking sure.
You know how many times over the years we get a message where somebody wants to turn a horse over and they say, "All my other horses look good," as if somehow that proves they're feeding enough to the horse that doesn't look good. If your horse doesn't look good, you're probably not feeding him enough or the right thing. You could be feeding the right volume, unlikely, but you could be, and not feeding the right kind of food. If we have heard of 40 some horses at Mulligan, and we have 3 different fields, and even that's not enough to break it down to the differences in what the horses need. So in that way, then a lot of them have to come in and get their individual amounts of food in stalls. And it's a lot of management.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at your farm, does anybody get the same thing?
Anna and Luna.
And the metabolic kind of horses.
Annie and Luna.
Yeah. And then everything else there has some other need.
Some other need. And I will say that, Twinkie, I was trying to feed her as much as she would eat, and she wouldn't eat anymore, but she needed treated for ulcers.
Right. Well, and so there could be a medical need that needs addressed. A horse may need to go on Presend. A horse may need ulcers treated. A horse may carry a heavy parasite load and need an intense power pack. A horse may have special dental issues where they can't make use of round bale hay. Maybe they can't even make use of square bale, so you need to chop the hay. You may need to soak alfalfa pellets. Some horses don't need any grain. They just need a ration balancer to get the vitamins and minerals they need in them. And they do just fine on a otherwise forage diet.
But I think the problem, though, in the preponderance of people is, number one, they think all horses can be fed exactly the same, and they want to feed all 11 of them one coffee can of whatever, and they should all be fine. And that doesn't work. And also, horses change according to season what they need, or according to herd dynamics what they need, or according to age what they need. Just because your one coffee can worked for your 11 horses for 3 years doesn't mean in the 4th year it may not work, because something's changed.
And I think talking about herd dynamics is really important, because that is something I think that's overlooked a lot, and we see it a lot because of the number of horses we bring in and out. You can have a horse that was doing really well, and we've seen this, I think, a little bit this year more than usual. You bring a horse that's doing well, it's higher pecking order in the herd, it looks fantastic. Bring in a different horse, now the horse is not higher pecking order, and why is now that amount of food not working? The horse is stressed, the horse maybe is not able to stand in the same place that they want to, maybe he's moving around more because the horse is chasing him, maybe more bugs are getting to him and irritating him in the place that he has to stand now because his pecking order place has changed and he can't be where he'd like to be, under the trees in the shade, whatever it is. Stress and herd dynamics play a huge role in nutrition, and a lot of people don't think about that. So they'll immediately go to, changing, maybe changing the diet when the stressor is still there, and maybe the diet's not where you need to address it. Usually it is diet. Usually if a horse is thin, usually diet's the problem. But deworming and stress and ulcers and so forth. Herd dynamics, teeth, that can all play a role.
Even seasons.
Seasons.
Maybe your horse can't keep itself as warm as it used to be able to, and now in the winter it's burning calories trying to keep itself warm.
Well, a good example, in the summer, thoroughbreds that we have usually come in of the day and are under a fan. They don't tolerate the flies well, and it seems like no amount of food can go in them in the setting we have if they don't come in half a day and get out of the flies, get out of the heat, and they go out at night. So we could feed the same amount of food, but if they're stomping flies, burning those calories and stressed out of the day, it doesn't make as much in terms of body condition. So they need to come in, whereas some of the horses hang out in the field, what we call the fatty field, and they get no grain, just ration balancer, and they are still little lard tubs. So it just varies. And I think one thing, change the way you feed and go to pounds, because that allows you to break down understanding, well, I'm feeding, you can go from, we feed, some of our horses get 3 pounds, 3 pounds, 3 pounds. So if you have a horse that's struggling, often a lunch feeding helps. But then we are just adding a pound. If you're doing scoops, you don't even know exactly what you're doing in terms of how much you're feeding. And also what kind of food. If you're buying the cheapest sweet feed at Tractor Supply, the caloric value, nutritional value, it's almost like a filler to a degree. There is sweetness to it, but that doesn't mean that it's nutritionally dense.
Right.
And so you may be thinking you're getting off cheaper because that bag is $20 instead of the $35 feed. But if you really look at what's in the feed, you actually might save money. And even if you don't, you're still investing in the horse's, overall well-being by feeding a proper food. But there are many feeds out there. Look at the calorie count. That you can find the calorie count on any of these bags. A Mad Barn will have it if the bags don't have it, or if the tag, or if you can't find it on the website. And if you just have a horse that's struggling, well, how many calories are in what you're feeding? And what is the volume of feed? You have to look at those kinds of things.
I call that learning to bounce. You got to learn to bounce your feed. Sometimes you got to bounce up. Sometimes you got to bounce down. Sometimes you got to bounce your horse into another pasture.
And we do it all the time at the rescue. And I was just bragging on a trainer that we know, Laura Funderburg, has a herd of 50 plus horses out in Ohio. And usually when you have a herd that big, no matter what, you're going to see a couple of horses that are constantly in need of something. And I was so impressed with how well managed that herd was fed. and how good they looked. The fat ones.
But she had to go on a journey, though, because she learned
Yeah.
that she had such high iron on her farm. She was having a really hard time getting everything to be okay.
Well, it's a process. This year at the rescue, but the flies have been really bad, and I feel like the condition has been harder to keep on horses. I think there's been more herd dynamics, more clash. So you do have to bounce, and you have to always be out there looking at them.
Yeah.
You know, I just had a horse that was in a clinic when Nelson came in, McAllister, and he looked fantastic. Well, he didn't look so great the other day. The herd dynamics, we added a gelding that's beat on him, and to a degree, like, that helped his attitude some, but it stressed him out. So then we separated the herds, and now he just kind of looks rough. So I just said to Kelsey, "Hey, let's bring him in. Let's get him in a stall, and reevaluate." And that's the way you have to work. And it's easier when you have 2 or 3 horses, but always be willing to reevaluate how you're feeding, what you're feeding.
On day 6 of Twinkie's ulcer meds, she was willing to eat more food.
Yeah, well, we've seen that. I mean, if you have a horse that just doesn't seem to have an appetite, I have found the ulcers tend to be at the root of that.
Sometimes it's teeth, but most of the time it's ulcers.
Most of the time it's ulcers. And ulcers are very common. People don't realize how common. And here's the thing. It's kind of like a snowball effect. The horse has a new herd mate come in. Horse didn't have ulcers. Horse was doing well. Herd mate stresses horse. Horse now doesn't eat as much. Horse is stressed. Horse develops ulcers. And then you have multiple things going on. Horse is now more susceptible to parasites.
Yeah.
Horse now has a higher worm load with ulcers.
Now the coppers drop low and the feet are falling apart.
So it is complicated. Sometimes I do think people do overthink it. And if you have a low stress herd and it's a static herd, you don't run into this as much.
Yeah.
It's something to think about. I will say this as we wrap it up. Think about when you're wanting to add a new horse. Is that horse currently, and you can't say what will happen long term, but is that horse currently compatible with the way you feed and the way you want to feed? If you have a metabolic horse that you're managing that's obese, does it make sense to bring in a harder keeper, thoroughbred? Are you going to manage that? Is that going to make you have to separate the horses and create stress?
I talk about how long I had to work my butt off to get Annie and Luna balanced. Like, it was 18 months of hard work to get them balanced. Now they're easy, but I worked my butt off.
Well, and I think in the same way that you worked hard to get them at a good weight to keep them from being too heavy, I tell people that about hard keepers. Usually hard keepers are not so much that they're hard. Something has been lacking a long time. And a lot of our hard keepers that come into rescue that were hard to get weight on 2 years later are perfectly easy horses to keep weight on. So again, that goes back to that stress, getting the body balanced, the mineral, the vitamins, all like sorted out.
The other thing that maybe people don't think of is people call all the time and want me to tell them how to feed their horses, and I'm like, well, I can tell you what I would do, but here's the problem. You don't live where I live, and your ground and your mineral content and your grass and all of that, your protein, all that is way different than where I live. So I can only tell you what would work in my area. I can't really tell you the best what will work in your area because it's all different geographically.
And you don't always get the best advice when you start asking people. I saw something, and
Are you telling them my advice is not very good?
No, but I'm telling you, when you go to people in your own area and ask for advice, they may not tell you the best. But I've seen numerous things I've been tagged in where people say, what can I do to get weight on a horse? And then you'll go and go to the comments, and it'll be like, calf manna, increase the protein. I like to feed oats. I mean, just like, people do not know at all, as a rule, how to give good advice, and they intend to help, but it often isn't what they really know anything about. Those are not the ways to do it, by the way. We're always happy to help. We're not the only people that can help you. There are other good nutritional pages out there. And so if you're having trouble managing feed. First, wonder, are you feeding all your horses the same? I guess that's kind of the moral of the story. That won't work. And if it does, it doesn't work forever.
It's nice when it does work, though.
It is nice. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to add another horse, think about that. Make it easier for yourself. You know, when I raised dairy cows, I knew that I wanted a cow that didn't have to have 6 gallons of grain a day and produce, 10 gallons of milk a day. So I shopped accordingly. So if you know what you want in mind, I mean, understand that it can change, but halflingers over thoroughbreds, there's a big difference in the way they tend to need to be fed. So think about that. If you have a herd of fatties, probably might as well get another fatty, And if you have a herd of harder keepers, it's a lot easier than to try to separate a horse that needs 5 pounds of feed, AM, lunch, PM, and over here is an air fern looking longingly at their herd mate,
tearing your fence down.
Why can't I have anything to eat? Those things come up. So, all right, y'all. Susanna's got to get on to a birthday party for her sister's baby, I reckon, and I got to get to the DMV. So until next time, we'll bring the ATFO to you. I guess when we'll do it, we'll be at the ATFO next one. Till then, I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And this is Horses of Courses.